Hello everyone, welcome to Easy Economics. We are here back with our exciting series of discussed questions. Today, I've brought for you all the question that came in November 2016, variant 3. It refers to the topic of exchange rates, particularly devaluation. All right. The question says, discuss whether a country should devalue the country's exchange rate. Like I said earlier, there are two key terms in this question. Again, it's an 8 marker. It's a discuss question, like we always do. We first give a quick discussion, then discuss how we're going to put into paragraphs. First, we'll go for the for pointers, then we go for pointers against the statement, and then we'll end our answer with a solid conclusion justifying our reasoning. All right. Devalue. What do you mean by devaluation? Yes, it refers to fixed exchange rates. But then what is exactly the intention for government when we refer to devaluation? The government is trying to what? That's an economic policy pursued by a country's government to weaken the value of its country. So devaluation refers to a change in the value of a currency from one exchange rate to a lower rate, or you can simply call it as a fall in the value of a fixed exchange rate. Now, before we discuss on to devaluation, you see, we need to assess why a government is pursuing devaluation, what are its intended aims or objectives behind this policy. Then we need to decipher the current situation, the current economic situation a government is at the moment having, and then you need to carefully assess the impacts of devaluation. Usually, a government goes for devaluation when it is either trying to achieve export competitiveness, it's trying to boost its exports in comparison to its imports, it's trying to increase the level of exports and trying to decrease the quantity or the volume of imports. So it deliberately weakens its country and it's trying to shrink the gap of the trade deficit. And it could also be one of the reasons could be that it's trying that the domestic industry thrives. It's trying to stimulate domestic production. It's trying to boost economic growth, the level of employment level in this way. But the people who are against the policymakers who are against devaluation, they say the objectives that we are trying to achieve for devaluation, the positives are really for just for the time being, and they won't are not long lasting, and they argue that the negative impacts must also be taken into consideration because it's only benefiting you for a really short period of time. So you see, it's not going to last for a long period of time, and it would just give you a temporary boost to any economic issues you are addressing at the moment. For instance, if the country is trying to increase the level of employment level or trying to boost its domestic industry. So devaluation, it's a risky policy and it must be weighed. The pros and the cons must be carefully assessed. They must be meticulously weighed, and the pros and the cons must be aligned in order to ensure that the positives override the negative consequences. Get it? All right. So now let's proceed. All right. So the first impression, what do you get when a country is deliberately trying to weaken its country? What is it trying to do? It's trying to make its exports cheaper, and the price of exports is relatively going to be lesser. The price of exports will fall, and the imports will get dearer. The price of imports will rise. Imports will get expensive. As a result, what will happen? Overall, the country's goods will get competitive in the international market, and the demand for the country's goods and services will rise. As a result, the country is going to witness an export competitiveness in the global industry. All right. Then another merit of devaluation is that the trade balance improves. What happens is that the size of the trade deficit reduces, As a result, a country's exports gets competitive and the balance of payment can be in a favorable situation. Then what happens? Obviously, when there is a surge in the demand for the country's goods, the and the imports get dearer at the same time. So not only there has been a surge in a country's products in the by the foreign buyers, however, locally also people are going to switch to locally manufactured alternatives. As a result, the local industry is going to thrive. Employment level is going to rise because firms are going to expand. The level of economic activity is going to spur in your economy. Economic growth is going to be witnessed, standard of living of people is going to be improved, and the production level and the production activities are going to expand. So the productivity of your country can expand, and you will the production possibility curve can also shift outwards. All right, another most highlighting advantage could be there could be an increase in the tourism. Why? Because a weaker currency can draw foreign tourists because their money will go further, giving them more purchasing power in the country with the devalued currency. So you can see a rise in the tourists coming into your country, and the tourism industry of your country can boost. As a result, again, foreign exchange in your country is going to come. All right. However, there are critics who say that no, devaluation must not be done. Why? Because devaluation can be costly in the sense that if you are causing your currency to weaken, so what happens is that the imports gets expensive. So if you are importing key raw materials or if you're importing machinery, so what will happen? That the cost of production will rise, and as a result, you might witness cost push inflation, and so the price of your goods will rise, and then your goods will no longer be competitive, and overall inflation might be witnessed. So the purchasing power of people will then fall, and savings might also fall. And in this context, you can draw this diagram, which shows cost push inflation, the impact of cost push inflation, that the aggregate supply has now shifted inwards from AS to AS1. So this is the new curve, and the price has now risen from P to P1 as depicted by an increase in the price level. And the output level is going to shift inwards from Y to Y1. All right. Another drawback of devaluation is that frequent devaluation gives rise to uncertainty. The economic uncertainty in any economy increases and the investor confidence dips. So what happens is both in the international and in the domestic arena, the investors are a bit reluctant to invest in your country, and it might lead to flight of capital, which would again destabilize your economy. Uh, and the level of investment will fall and economic growth will be at stake. So what will happen? That the standard of living will fall. Another drawback is that there might be retaliation by other countries. Now, what do you mean that trade wars can occur? And if other countries, which are your trading partners, are also following a fixed exchange rate system, so there could be a tit for tat, there could be a tit for tat price war, there could be a tit for tat currency war, and it could lead to a dangerous vicious cycle. And rather than bringing good, it might bring in more harm. So retaliation by other countries would be another drawback if a country decides to pursue frequent devaluation uh, at its resort. Cost of debt servicing is another alarming drawback. If a country has debt that is denominated in foreign currencies, so what happens is that devaluation can increase the burden of debt, as more of local foreign currency would then be required to service the debt. And if a country has significant debt denominated in foreign currencies, the cost of debt servicing will rise. So the cost of debt servicing can be a great issue if a country has significant debt denominated in foreign currencies. So the cost of servicing the debt will increase. All right. So overall, what happens? It whether a country should devalue a currency or not, it would devaluation would just give you a temporary boost, and the economic issues must be addressed through by way of structural reforms. And because this resort of devaluing a currency either to gain export competitiveness or for increasing your standard of living or for boosting the local industry, uh, you see short-term positives would be reaped. You see, uh, but if you want to pursue long-term stability and growth, then structural reforms need to be taken in by the government. So how will you conclude? You will conclude your answer by saying that whether a country should devalue its currency or not would greatly depend upon the economic condition of the country, the objectives behind its decision, the level of inflation existing in the economy, the debt scenario. The policymakers or the government must weigh the benefits against the potential costs. Undoubtedly, yes, would give rise to boost exports and the deficit would shrink. However, it would give a rise to the level of uncertainty and they might lead to tit for tat currency wars, uh, even going up to the extent leading up to recessions or entering the economy into a situation of a vicious cycle. So, uh, whether a country decides to go for devaluing its currency, it must meticulously weigh the short term benefits against the negative impacts to ensure that it aligns with its broader economic objectives and it fosters sustainable economic growth. So I hope you all have understood. Stay tuned, subscribe. We'll be coming back with lots of more such answers. Happy learning.